and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 105, Go, Zoho. Recorded on July 31st, 2020 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the news.
So we've got a nice little bit of news to start off the show. Zoho is now touting that they have 15 million users in the Zoho Workplace. For those of you that aren't familiar, Zoho Workplace is basically what they have that competes against Microsoft Office and
G Suite,
G Suite, those kind of things. Yeah.
And it's a nice application. I mean, in addition to having any of the kind of core Office functionality like document management, spreadsheets, presentation tools, it also comes with Zoho Meeting, which is their kind of analog for Zoom. It comes with Cliq, which is really similar to Slack for like internal communication. And it comes with Zoho Connect, which is one that's a little less publicized, but is actually an awesome tool for managing internal communication and task management for your different teams.
Yeah, and the whole Office suite, of course, right? So Writer, Sheet, and Show. So pretty interesting across the board. I mean, if you look at everything they include in this, it's the fact that they are getting this type of penetration into the marketplace. I mean, they say that more than 25% of the new Zoho Workplace customers made the decision to switch over from G Suite and Microsoft. And I think it's still free, isn't it, for like the next couple of months? Or
yeah, I think so. It's still kind of, that's part of the remotely plan. So I think remotely might be a little different, might be a few different applications included there. There are some pretty interesting stats here, though, about some of the specific apps. So if you're looking at Zoho Cliq, they were seeing just massive increases in usage. So since March, Zoho Cliq is at a 225% increase in messages sent and a 1,200% increase in calls made since just March. And Zoho Meeting has had a 772% increase in meeting sessions since March. So you can definitely see some pretty incredible usage. The interesting thing is we use Cliq every day, and with those increases, I've not really felt any issues with quality. I mean, 1,200% increase in calls, but I've not had any call drops or quality issues when I've been using Cliq. So it seems like everything's running pretty smoothly, despite the fact that they're seeing some huge increases in usage.
It's just amazing. I mean, if you look at the pricing here on a monthly basis, $7 per user per month gets you Mail, Work Drive, the full Office suite, Cliq, Zoho Meeting, Connect, and Showtime. It's crazy. I mean, it's just just amazing. I'm kind of curious to see what they do there. There's some interesting things too. I'm hearing rumors, by the way, and we've been hearing these for a while. We can keep hope alive here. I'm hearing rumors that there's potential that calendar is being revamped, Tyler.
I'd love to see it,
and that it's coming soon. So that's some pretty significant news there, I think, if it's going to happen. And then a new product. You can't go without a month lately without a new product. This is kind of interesting. It's only in beta right now, but it's called TeamInbox, and it's going to be for shared inbox collaboration.
And this kind of hopes to solve one of the common issues, just in the fact that so much communication goes through email, and oftentimes you might need to communicate about an email or have some visibility in different emails within a certain team, right? And email just by default is just not really set up to do that very well, right? So there's a lot of different tools on the market, whether it's a Kanban style tool, you could forward into a desk tool to kind of create a shared ticketing environment. But this is kind of built to be just a simple team inbox, right? Where you could basically integrate your different email services into one place so that you could share and communicate about those emails as they come in.
It's hard to say. It looks like they want to direct things like, info at, marketing at, those kind of things. Because they have really good sharing already inside of Zoho Mail. If you're using Zoho Mail, you can do that. And this is interesting. It's got its own logo. That's kind of cool. So, I mean, it is going to be its own product. And you were saying it's not part of Zoho One yet, then it's not even
It's going to be
integrated in.
part of Zoho One, I believe. It looks
Okay.
like in some of the responses here on the post, people are asking. It sounds like it is going to be a Zoho One tool.
Got it. But not part of Zoho Mail right now. So this is just a standalone app that you'll forward these emails to. Very similar to Desk is my guess.
Yeah, they're saying they're working on an integration with Zoho Mail. So I don't know exactly what that's going to look like when it all shakes out, but definitely a separate product, but coming soon. And if you check out the link over in the newsletter, you'll see you can actually sign up or request access for the beta if you want to take a look at TeamInbox.
Yeah, I think that's going to be interesting to see what they do with that. If it's kind of is it going to be just a really light version of kind of Desk? You know, it's hard to say. They have a video that's in there, but lately Zoho's little introduction videos are kind of these little cartoons, so you're not really seeing any actual product. They've really gotten into these cartoon videos lately, kind of these little 1-minute explainers, but they really don't kind of show you what you're getting. So we don't have access to the beta yet. We've requested it as soon as it came out, which was yesterday. Hopefully we will have that soon. Maybe we can talk about it in more detail next week.
Yeah, I'd expect to follow up on that one soon.
For sure. Well, Bigin is getting bigger. So I don't even know what to say. Wow. Bigin now integrates with Zoho campaigns. So talk to me, Tyler.
Yeah, so it looks like a pretty similar integration that they have with the standard CRM. If they kind of show a couple components of the UI, it looks like you're setting it up pretty much the same way. So just lining up fields between Bigin and campaigns, right? So you can kind of pull your different contacts in and start dripping them out, you know, the campaigns like you would from your traditional CRM contacts. Definitely just interesting, you know, week after week, just more integrations, more functionality coming to Bigin. This one, I think, you know, we've kind of poked fun at a couple of the other ones, like, you know, managing your products in your lightweight CRM. This one, I think, makes a lot of sense. Even if you're running something like a lightweight CRM, you're definitely going to want to be able to integrate that with email marketing. So this one is totally in line. I think makes a ton of sense and is really nice to see. You know, still waiting to kind of see where they go with this product. I think it'll make more sense once we see what they're doing with the CRM integration, because we know that's coming.
I know that's an interesting one.
You know, you're integrating a CRM with a CRM, so we'll see what happens there. But I mean, overall, it is a pretty slick little app, gorgeous UI. Good to see functionality like this come out. But again, it's getting bigger and bigger.
I'm starting to think that now that Bigin is part of Zoho One, which I don't know if that was the original plan or not. And now that they're saying it's going to integrate with the CRM, I'm thinking maybe, you know, you'll have your CRM, but you maybe won't have any sales guys in it. Your sales guys will be in Bigin. They won't actually go to the CRM. They'll manage their basic deals and basic pipeline directly out of there. And maybe that's where they're headed with this at least on the Zoho One side, right? You can do a lot of heavy lifting in the CRM, but then, you know, just for light sales duties and things like that. And if the integration's kind of two-way, record to record, you know, maybe it's I don't know, Tyler. I could just speculate, but who knows?
Yeah, it is one thing that, you know, we do hear from people a lot is that once you start building a lot of custom functionality in the CRM, it can get a little bit busy, right? If you've got a lot of different custom fields and realistically, a lot of the sales reps might not be touching those fields very often. Now, of course, with proper setup, you can hide those fields, you know, from the reps and not make it part of what they're seeing every day. But it's definitely nice to be able to plug this in. I just wish, you know, as we've said a couple times, get those Kanbans over to the CRM. Let me see them there because, you know, they're so nicely put together over in Bigin. Could definitely benefit the CRM to get a little touch up in the UI.
For sure. All right, and then everyone will be upgraded to Creator 5 on December 1st, 2020. So, man, oh man, Creator 5 has been out at least a year and a half now. I guess it was the 2019 Zoholics they rolled it out, so maybe a little less than a year and a half. They've been keeping 4 because it was such a dramatic change in interface that a lot of people didn't want to have to make that switch. So they've kind of kept Creator 4 around for the longest time, but that's it. So December 1st, everyone's getting switched. So it's up to you, kids. You can hang on to the bitter end or just go ahead and click that button. But anybody who bought it after a certain period of time, they don't even have the choice anymore.
Yeah,
But
it's all Creator 5 now if you sign up.
Yeah, but you kind of get that whole, old version thing, kind of like what you have in CRM right now, where you can say, switch to old version, switch to new version. I still see a lot of people on that old version in CRM, which is interesting. Most people seem to be using Creator 5 though. I don't know, but I think there's
I think the Creator 5, I mean, from the user experience perspective, it's a lot cleaner, right? Kind of looks more like the modern look and feel that you'd expect. Creator 4, I think, looks just a little bit dated. If you compare it to especially if you compare it to other Zoho apps, right? But the big thing that, at least for me, I really prefer with Creator 5 is the development interface. Like the way that your different automations and workflows are organized in the Creator 5 UI, at least for me. I mean, everyone works differently, when you're developing, but I really, really like how they're organized in Creator 5. I wish they were more like that in the CRM, where it's basically inside of any form that you're working on, you can plug workflows directly in. They're not really in their own little bucket. And that for me is just a really intuitive way to set it up. So if you are holding on to Creator 4, I think once you get used to the Creator 5 interface, you'll come to really like it because it's super, super responsive and quick to work in.
Yeah, I think so. And then Zoho CRM Timezones and the API for Timezones is changing. So this one's crazy. So currently the list of time zones in the CRM is over 700. If you look at, all of the various duplication in time zones, and they're going to cut this down to 500. So I don't really know what to say here. I mean, I've always found it interesting that you have basically the same exact time zone, but people need to see their city, right? So, you've got Pacific San Diego, Pacific Los Angeles, Pacific Santa Barbara, Pacific San Francisco, and it's just all in California. And you have all of these different cities. I don't know why there's more. I guess you need more than 25 because some countries actually have 30 and 15-minute offsets, right? Which is kind of interesting, but I'm not the controller of these things. But anyway, rather,
yeah, definitely something to be aware of. I think one of the main places that this is going to have an effect is a couple of the Zoho functions. When you're writing Deluge or via API, you can set, when you're working with date time fields, you can use the standard codes for these time zones to kind of set the format or the time zone that the output of your function should be in. And so if you are using any of these ones that are going to be invalid, it looks like they are going to be trying to automatically map them for you, but it's definitely something that you want to go in and double check. So, they're basically saying that they're going to find an analog. So if you're in GMT 530 and you're in one of the ones that's going away, right, then they're going to change you to an equivalent time zone. So it might not be the right state for you anymore, but it should still be the right time zone conversion. So nothing catastrophic should happen here in terms of mapping or integrations, but definitely worth a double check once this goes live.
So why the difference? I mean, I always wondered on this though, why we standardized on having the names. I mean, if it's GMT 530, then it's GMT 530, right? And you'd probably only have 30, you maybe only have 30 then, maybe 40, at the end of the day, I guess, but people would have to remember what their Greenwich Mean Time zone was, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, is that it's all based on that time zone that isn't really used for a lot of people, so might just be that it's a little more familiar. So that if you're going to search your time zone, I could search San Diego and find it, or search Cincinnati now and find it. So I think it might just be a user thing, but I would argue that maybe having 30 options instead of 500 might be even better.
I think it might be a little cleaner for everybody concerned. And then Cliq has added read receipts. This is kind of interesting. Basically, you'll know now if someone's read your Cliq message, it's going to give you a little double blue checkbox that'll let you know that a message has been written. Read, I should say.
Yeah, so this one, it's under your privacy settings in Cliq. For us, I think both of us saw that it was automatically checked. So I'm going to have to uncheck mine so that I can consider or continue ignoring Brett's Cliq messages. But other than that, it's quick to turn off and on, and it's definitely nice so that your team knows if you have seen anything that they've sent your way.
Yeah, not a major enhancement, but I think somewhat something nice. Who knows? I know that we really don't have that problem. My kid here on the little show notes saying it's a big issue at Zenatta with you, but I mean, the thing about Cliq is it's one of those instantaneous feedback kind of things, where you really get that. Most people respond pretty instantly because I think they're kind of realizing that, at least in our organization, it's something that usually requires a response for some reason. All right, and then Zoho Community, the Zoho Inventory Community Digest dropped this week, so we've got a link to that in the show notes. Pretty much just rounds up everything that happened in Zoho Inventory for the month of July. So if you're an inventory user, we've pretty much covered everything: the sign integration, the Avalara integration, all the various other topics that they've talked about on the Ask the Expert series. So I think we've covered it, but you can go check.
Definitely one too. It's nice to check out. They do have, like you mentioned, an Ask the Expert series where they did some discussions on some of the key integrations that they see in Zoho Inventory. So they kind of have a big thread about Zoho Sign, about Avalara for tax management, a couple other topics there that they've kind of run through in depth. It's definitely worth taking a look at if you are a Zoho Inventory user.
And the Zoho has also announced a new plugin for Outlook that allows you to associate emails with a CRM record. And it's really interesting in that this is kind of cool. So if you're reading an email, it doesn't matter that maybe this email doesn't, the email address is different. You can just go ahead and associate the email with a particular record. Then it looks like you'd have multiple emails associated with the same record inside the CRM. I'm not an Outlook user. There are no comments on this. This is a very, very limited post, but I like the concept. If I'm reading this right, I kind of like the concept.
Yeah, and it could be very slick. So like this could come into play a lot when, so you're going to have your default IMAP integration set up, and that's basically going to match, an email from John Smith at Gmail is going to go find him in the CRM and match that email in. But, let's say you were working with maybe one of your client's vendors on a specific transaction, and you wanted to link that email to a deal or to that contact, even though they might not be the person sending it to you. This kind of just opens up some options there for how you can link these emails. One thing that's interesting that I don't see is, let's say I link email one from a chain, to a deal record, for example, or to a contact record. Is that going to track the future emails in that chain in that same CRM record? Because that could be pretty slick if you add email number one and then all the following ones are just nested under that same record over in the CRM. That could definitely be very, very useful.
Yeah, I think so. It's and is this for the desktop version?
Yeah, it looks like desktop. Well, it's always hard to tell with Outlook.
Yeah, add-ins for Outlook. I'm not sure what version they're doing here. Anyway, it's pretty interesting. I'd like to see that come to Gmail. I think that would be a nice.
Wouldn't be surprised.
I'd like to see it come to Zoho Mail. I think that would be a good thing as well. So who knows? All righty. And then Backstage has added activity logs. This is something we kind of were talking about before the show, saying, we already thought it was there. But this is nice. Basically, if you're familiar with the CRM, you can look in any record inside the CRM and you've got a full activity log. It tells you everything that's going on. Basically, you now have exactly the same thing with Backstage.
And it's kind of a necessary feature, for managing really any type of system. You got to be able to see what all went down at what time, who did it, right? Just in case anything's ever amiss, or if you need to, just track something that may have been done in error, or you want to see something that someone did really well, right? And you want to just know who did it, right? So there's all different types of use cases where you just need to be able to know what all went down on a certain record.
And in mobile app news, there have been some changes to SalesIQ and the iOS notification behavior. This is kind of a bummer. Previously, if you had you had a notification in SalesIQ on your desktop and you cleared it out, it would clear out in the iOS app. But due to changes on Apple's side, that is no longer the case. So due to changes on Apple's side now, it'll still show up as a notification and you have to open the app for it to clear itself out. I've actually noticed this on a few apps lately. I'm not sure what the purpose is that Apple has here with this iOS 13 update, this policy update. But I'm noticing on other apps more than just Cliq. There are several apps now where this seems to be the case. So anyway, small change, not Zoho's fault, but something to know if you keep saying, hey, I look, you open your Cliq and it's already, you have to clear out something you've already done. I think that, or, SalesIQ can be a little irritating on the chat side, I would think. And with that, let's talk about our implementation of the week.
Yeah, so this one comes out of the CRM, as many of these do. And it basically came with a request for doing some inquiry tracking. And so this is kind of a topic that comes up when you're thinking about marketing attribution. So kind of the use case is, let's say I am a potential customer and I fill out a lead form a year ago, right? And maybe a rep gives me a call or shoots me an email, but nothing ever really happens and I end up just being a cold lead. So let's say a year later, right, I come back and I fill out a different form, or I get hit with a Google ad and fill out some type of other form. It's going to come in, it'll find me based on the email and maybe update some info, but it doesn't really give you a way to track, at least at a field level, when that happened, right? So when did I come back? When did I make this second inquiry, via form or via some type of engagement with, the brand? And so basically what we set up here was a little system using Zoho Flow to track these different inquiries. So we set up a couple landing pages using Unbounce. We used Unbounce because it has some pretty nice ability for tracking UTM parameters, like the source, meaning like, did this come from a Facebook ad, a Google ad, what campaign, what keyword? You can do that with a lot of forms, but the client wanted to use Unbounce because they can make some really nice looking landing pages. And a lot of this tracking just comes out of the box. And basically what we did is, once that Unbounce form is submitted, it posts a webhook over to Zoho Flow, where we can generate an endpoint to capture that data. Zoho Flow goes ahead and looks for existing contacts and leads based on the email. If it does find an existing record, it creates a little child record called an inquiry underneath them. And if not, it'll go ahead and create a lead and an inquiry record for that new submission. A couple other little kind of tricks under the hood here. When leads are converted, we have a little script that'll map those inquiries to the contact and deal that are created. So you can kind of see it end to end, which deals came from which original inquiries that lead may have submitted. And then last but not least, it kind of allows you to do some multiple touch tracking in the CRM, so that when a lead submits a new form, you don't lose the original lead source, or like any other lead sourcing information that you may have. Because if you have for example, your UTM keyword mapped to a UTM keyword field in the lead, and they submit it later, by default, you're going to lose whatever that original keyword was. Whereas now you can actually track their journey throughout multiple different ad clicks and form submissions, if that case ever pops up.
Wow, I love this.
And then finally, too, it kind of does help as well with lead re-engagement. So like, you're likely going to have an automation that when a lead is created, maybe it's assigned and a task goes out, right? But if I fill out a form again as a lead, I'm not created again. So that workflow isn't going to be triggered a second time. So what you can actually do is change your workflows to be based on the creation of an inquiry rather than a lead record, so that if they do ever re-engage, you can trigger a task or a notification to the sales rep who should be assigned to it, so that they're able to hop in and engage that lead. It's actually a pretty common strategy that's used. Oddly enough, it's the first time we've implemented it for Zoho in the Zoho CRM, but I hear that it's very commonplace in Salesforce implementations, or really many where you're doing a lot of paid advertising.
Yeah, so are you tracking on the UTM side on this? Are we tracking just form fills? Are we tracking clicks? Are you tracking everything as an inquiry?
Yeah, so basically all their different ads, whether it's Facebook, Google, Bing, are all pointing to one Unbounce form. And the Unbounce form basically can track via field aliases. So like if I click the ad, I go to unbounceform.com, /UTM equals this, campaign equals this, right? So it's a custom URL that fills the form, fills some hidden fields. And then all of those are passed through the Flow integration. And Unbounce is pretty slick for this too. The whole testing environment and their webhooks are really well put together. So it was nice to use. I haven't used Unbounce in a little while, but it's very well made.
Well, the CRM has the visitor info thing. I mean, this is something I think you could probably do in SalesIQ with a little. This could be built into SalesIQ, I would say, pretty easily if Zoho wished to do it, because I mean, I do think this is great to be able to have. So what you've got is a custom module tracking every inquiry.
Yep, exactly.
So you go look at the custom module that's associated, and you can see everything they've really actually done. Hugely valuable, I would think, at the end of the day.
Yeah, and I think it's nice to do it this way too. I mean, they do have some pre-built integrations with like Google Ads. SalesIQ can do some of that tracking too. But I've always run into little hiccups setting those up, and then neither of those would really be able to support the multiple inquiry setup. Right. So for me, I oftentimes I end up going to systems like this where you're passing some parameters and tracking it that way, just because it's almost easier to set up than the standard Google form or Google Ads integration. Because you can really just use any old form that you want. And as long as you can pass field aliases to it, which, most forms nowadays are going to support that, then it's real painless to set this up.
I like it. I think we should implement it here. It's good stuff.
It probably wouldn't hurt.
No, it's good to track. I mean, if you think about all of the advertising and all of the things we do, it would be very, very interesting to kind of see who's doing what and get that and be a little more big brother on all this stuff. But it's nice. I mean, it's a great feature. I mean, when you're marketing and you've got someone, sometimes it's the craziest thing to know if somebody's ever really done anything, if they're
and the nice thing too,
attention.
The nice thing too with how we set this up is that you can also, and this was an option, you wouldn't have to do it this way, but we set it up so let's say I'm a sales rep and I go and I source a lead. When I create that lead, it'll also create an inquiry record. So if I were to go and actually do some sourcing, so that even if the lead fills out a form later, you can still attribute some partial credit to that rep for kind of bringing them into the system originally. Because you might have met someone at a trade show a year ago, right? And you add them in, but it doesn't really go anywhere, but you planted that seed. And now an hour later, or a year later, they see an ad, they remember the brand, they click that ad and they resubmit. If you don't have things set up properly, that original rep is going to get no credit because that lead source is going to be overwritten. So even when you're not routing these leads in through a form submission, this can still be a nice way to track that attribution over time.
Nice. All right. And then in things we notice, well, one of them is kind of cool for you. It's on Zoho Analytics. And the other one is, my goodness, finally. So why don't we start with analytics?
So it's a minor one, but it's really nice for the workflow and working inside of Zoho Analytics. So when you create dashboards inside of Analytics, you can add tons of different chart components. So let's say I want to have like 3 or 4 different bar charts tracking some different metrics. So previously you would have to manually size all of those bar charts, and you can use a little grid and it'll kind of snap to certain sizes. So it was never a huge pain, but you'd have to do them all manually. Now you can just get one of them sized how you'd like it and then copy paste those dimensions to all your different charts. And so this came up for one of our clients who were making just basically each of their different reps was going to have their own dashboard, and they have a lot of different reps. So it would have been kind of a bear to go through and size everything up properly by hand. And so I kind of noticed this pop in. I hadn't seen any announcements about it. I don't know if it's been there before, but if it was there before, then they've definitely changed the UI to make it more clear. So it was a good time to find it because it definitely saved me some headaches getting everything sized up for those dashboards.
Nice. No, it couldn't have been there before because when we were building out all of our client dashboards, it wasn't there, remember?
You're right. So it definitely wasn't there about 6 or 9 months ago.
Yeah. Good stuff. And then from scratch, this is why we noticed it, from scratch, we spun up a Zoho One install for a client the other day. And just as a side note, I mentioned that it appears that the double, triple naming issues are gone. So you've probably seen this when in your Zoho where a person's name will be John Smith or John Smith. And basically it would take one of the names and double it. And you'd always end up with these weird things. You always had to go in and manually fix it no matter what. And this has been around forever with Zoho One. So it's just so great that it got fixed. I don't even know what to say.
Yes, hopefully this is for everyone, because it's common too. I mean, we'd log into an instance, even if they've been using it for a while, and you'd see, John Smith, because it's basically taken the first and last name and put them into the first and last name fields. It's just an odd mapping issue in the CRM. So it looks to be resolved, at least on the last little spin up that we did here. So we'll keep an eye on it, but that'd be really nice, because this has been an issue for a couple of years, right?
Yeah. Way to go, Zoho. It's finally got it down. I like it, man. Forever. I remember having this conversation. We brought this up twice now, but at Zoholics Austin 2019, and they said, yeah, we know about it, and we'll have it fixed. So, and it's been at least over a year since. I mean, it had been going on for 6-8 months before that. So. Good stuff. All right, let's move on to this week's reads. I'm going to start with one from HubSpot, and they talk about they set up a private Facebook group about a year ago, and this is kind of how it overall impacted their audience and what the advantages were and why they did it. And I found it to be fascinating. I'm really not a big Facebook user, and I really don't participate in any of this, but I know that these Facebook groups are kind of a big deal, and a lot of people do spend a lot of time in there, and they actually find it to be the valuable part of Facebook, right? I mean, rather than the other part that gets talked about all the time. And I know you've got these kind of things over in LinkedIn, but really interesting, and I think a nice little write-up and something to consider about, hey, maybe it's worthwhile spinning up a Facebook group.
Yeah, it's definitely been a big focus for Facebook. I mean, they've made it clear for a while that they see groups as kind of the most effective way to use Facebook, so that you're kind of only jumping into engaging with people who are interested in similar things, or these certain topics, rather than just kind of the chaos of your feed when you look at your default feed in Facebook. And basically HubSpot walks through how they used it as a tool to figure out, who their VIP audience should be, right? Because when you have a Facebook group like that, that's kind of targeted, theirs is called marketers to marketers. You basically have the ability to allow people to validate that they're super interested in what you do. And then you can take those people and kind of use them as an example of, a good audience that you'd want to pursue further.
Yes, and to that end, we have started a CRM Zen Facebook group. So the link is going to be in the show notes, and I think it might be a nice little area for discussion. So we'll see what happens there, but it seemed like it might be worth kicking this off. So why not? Let's see if we can get the same kind of value out of this that HubSpot did. But we really don't have a community for CRM Zen. And I think this will just be a general Zoho discussion area, and we'll see how it goes. Zoho has a private group. It's got about 10,000 users on Facebook. I looked at that the other day, and Zoho One has a private group as well. But we'll see what it looks like. So we spun that up. Take a look. And then also Zoho over on their blog had what I thought was really interesting. This is kind of in line with what we've been seeing HubSpot do with, like, hey, here's what we're seeing on deals and those kind of things, and what those metrics are. And this is basically, here's what we've seen. Here are the trends we've seen in the 5 trends, top trends in Zoho CRM since the coronavirus. Really interesting stuff here. So decline in nearby maps usage and check-ins. So on the mobile app for CRM, you've got a check-in. Well, you'd expect this, but declined by over 73%, and map usage declined by 60% because people aren't on the road anymore and they're doing things in Zoho meetings or Zoom meetings. Increase in activities and notes, sitting at their desk, more time to do these kind of things. I thought this was interesting. An increase in calls and a decline in emails. So call logging has increased by over 55%, but mail usage inside the CRM anyway has dropped by over 68%. So kind of
And that's interesting because
there.
that's kind of opposite of what HubSpot was reporting. HubSpot saw a huge increase in marketing emails going out, though it's a
Yeah,
little different as, HubSpot is also kind of a campaigning tool. So it is a
correct.
little different, versus the CRM being more focused on sales or transactional emails. So a little bit skewed, but definitely interesting to see such a huge difference in the change in email volume between the two applications.
Yeah, and then they had a decline in the number of new records added, but an increase in the number of updates. So, that one kind of goes with what we've seen hand in hand, which is a lot of people are taking this opportunity to clean up their CRM and update things and make the changes they need to make. So, some interesting data across the board. All right, so let's move on to what we've got over at Zenatta.com. A couple of things. We have a new YouTube video, and it basically is our webinar. We did a webinar on Tuesday of this week on Zoho projects or overview and best practices. Answered a lot of questions. Tyler, I think it's pretty. If you really are new to Zoho projects, take a look. We'll step you through all of the basics and everything you want to do. So I think that's well worth taking a look at. And additionally, we have a couple new assets that we found. We found one on CRM Wizards. These are relatively new. How long have Wizards been around?
Not long at all, actually, just a couple months. They were in beta for a little while, and I think just officially got rolled out in the past month or so.
Yeah, so this is a nice guide. It's basically steps you through how to build a wizard, what you need to do, how to use a wizard. It's interesting that it's just on the internet. Then the very last page says it's for internal use only, don't distribute. But I think it's a step-by-step guide on how to do wizards. So, and since you can easily find it by searching how to do wizards PDF, it's there. So we posted that up as well. And then another one, which is 8 tips for implementing a successful CRM. It's a nice guide too. It's also a 2021, really, really well done. So I recommend you take a look at those. We continue to go kind of for these resource guides and build these things out. And we're finding some really great stuff. And our resource library over at Zenatta is just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm really happy with the way it's turning out. Pretty much any product, you can go in there, click on resources, click on the product, and we're just building that up. So you'll basically be able to find hopefully things that will help you use that product and get more out of it. All right, let's move on to our application of the week, Lately. So this is interesting. We have a demo coming up, and I normally wouldn't talk about a product until we've actually been using it for a while, but I was so impressed just with their general to try this out features that they have on their website that I really want to talk about it. So if you're doing social media posting, you can take any blog, you paste the URL of the blog post into Lately, and it will spit out dozens of blog posts of social media posts. So in this case, your posts aren't always the same, and you can maybe schedule them over several days and you're not saying the same thing. So our very, very first story that we talked about on this show was Zoho getting 15 million users for their new workspace product and their workplace product. And so I posted that link in, and I just took a sample here. And that if you're watching the show, you'll see on the screen, but it spit out probably 30 or 40 potential social media posts for this. So, and they're good. So it somehow parses out really good lines. In the last quarter, Zoho Workplace has seen a dynamic increase in adoption and now supports 15 million users globally. And then the link. The company has explained this unprecedented growth as a consequence of the pandemic, as well as high demand for business users seeking better business applications and integrations. And then the link, more than 25% of new Zoho Workplace customers have made the decision to switch over from G Suite and Microsoft. These are just kind of little teaser taglines. They also have the ability, you can upload a video, like we could put this show in there. It will create a transcript and then using AI, pull out video highlights The reviews on it are crazy. It almost sounds too good to be true. It's going to parse the video, create the video, upload the video. You've got the entire thing. So if you're doing some social media, you sit there and you struggle with, oh gosh, what should I write for this post? You want to maybe make your post a little more unique from site to site to site. Maybe you want to post about the same thing a couple of times. Lately looks like the way to go. And we've got a lot more features than that as well. I really think it's a whole dashboard as well, where they pull all of your metrics in together. A really, really, really cool application. So we're going to look at a demo this week. Again, we'll be talking more about this, but it's one of the top rated apps out there for this. And I just can't recommend it enough on this, just on the side, just the initial look of it. Man, if it lives up to it, it's going to be cool stuff.
I'm always interested behind the scenes of how the AI can do this. I mean, it's got to be looking for certain key phrasing or sentence structure even that might be signaling a call out sentence like that, and it's skimming through the article, but really, really cool stuff.
And this looks to me to be AI too. I mean, I ran like 7 or 8 links through it and none of it was junk, right? All of it was tight. So I thought that was really interesting. And I imagine, one of the things I thought that was missing though, is it's not hashtagging or at referencing. If it would hashtag, and maybe it does that once you get into the demo, I'm gonna ask about that, because oh boy, that would take it to a whole new level, huh? That ability to, automatically put out the proper hash. Because we talked, I think a few weeks ago, about a company that just basically will read your post and then tell you what you should hashtag and at mention in the post to get the most out of it. I mean, yeah, look, if you're writing this stuff, you want to get it to the widest audience possible. And, this is the way you have to do that. So anyway, some good stuff there. All right. And then our tip and trick of the week, this can't be more simple, but I think this week alone, I came across 3 new clients or people that I was talking to on the phone who had their CRM for the longest time, and they had never, ever done anything to rearrange the base module configuration that comes from Zoho. We have something internally, we call it the Zenatta way, where we basically completely rearrange all of the modules so that they make more sense, so that record data is in its own section, contact info is in its own section. But so many times you'll get on with someone and everything's just this big jumble, and it's very hard for salespeople to find anything they're looking for. I mean, phones and emails, they're kind of all over the place. So anyway, we made a quick little video. It's 2 minutes long, kind of show you our basic process. I think we'll post a blog post on this and maybe put some screenshots up of how we actually organize what we think the best kind of case-based organization should be for this.
And it's one of those things that is low effort, high reward. Like if you're working inside of one of these systems, just being able to easily find the information that you want to find is just so valuable, especially when you're trying to get your team to use a system like this. So it even applies if you've got some custom fields, maybe you capture some financial data. We'll go ahead and toss that into a financial information section, right? Yep. Because you can create those sections for yourself and just keep everything organized. It definitely just comes out of the box a little bit blocky. If you're looking at the podcast on YouTube here, you can see on the screen kind of one of the default layouts here for a contact. And it really is just every field in 2 big columns, not a lot of rhyme or reason. So it's one of those things, if you take an hour, walk through all the different modules and really just organize them out, or at least start with some of the core ones that you use every day, it's going to make the system a lot more usable.
Yeah. And when I look at this, you say no rhyme or reason. There really doesn't appear to be a lot of rhyme or reason for a lot of how these kind of fields got out there. So take a look at that, and hopefully you'll find that video useful. I think it's less than 2 minutes long, so worth looking at. All right, Tyler, and that is a wrap. If you've got any questions or comments, please send them to us over at info@zenatta.com, or just go over to our website and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. You can also follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.